As every fan of the Harry Potter series knows, J.K. Rowling was very intentional about the name Voldemort, or at least she was far more intentional about the name Voldemort than when she made his real middle name Morvolo for the sake of one really cool anagram scene in Chamber of Secrets, which she then had to commit to for the rest of the series. On the odd chance you don't know, Voldemort's name was a clever play on the French words Voldemort, which translates roughly to flight of death. His name literally means to run away from dying, perfectly embodying Tom's deepest fear, death. While yes, Riddle is an absolute power-hungry maniac who dreams of world domination and the spread of pure blood ideology, every single one of his actions stems from his crippling fear of death. Relatable. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Voldemort's empire of cannibal wizards. I mean, they are called Death Eaters. I've always assumed there was something darker going on there. Nor are we here to talk about his fear of death in general. Today, we're going to talk about a more tangible fear of Voldemort. One that we are beaten over the heads with in the books over and over and over again, starting as early as book 1.
Who's the one wizard Voldemort always feared? Dumbledore. As long as Dumbledore's around, Harry, you're safe. As long as Dumbledore's around, you can't be touched.
Today, we are going to learn why Voldemort always feared Dumbledore, and more importantly, why it is one of the best written aspects of the series. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I wanted to start by saying thanks so much for all the support you've gave me on the last video about the power systems of One Piece. As of writing this script, I'm 7 subscribers away from 100 subs, a mark I never actually really thought I'd get to. So if you could help me reach that goal, I'd really appreciate it. And with that, let's get back into the video. From the very beginning of the series, Voldemort is established as being fearful of Dumbledore. J.K. Rowling even doubles down on this in such an awesome way by calling the chapter where Voldemort and Dumbledore fight in Order of the Phoenix the only one he ever feared. I personally really love the way that only is emphasized so heavily throughout the series, as it really shows the uniqueness of the man that is.
Albus Percival Wulfric Brown.
But it does pose the question of why, and also, only, where does Harry Potter, the one actually responsible for his final death, come into play? Well, in typical this channel fashion, let's answer the second question first. Voldemort is partially aware of the prophecy that drives the entire series, and puts a lot of faith in it. In Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore tells Harry that he heard only the beginning, the part foretelling the birth of a boy in July to parents who had thrice defied Voldemort. Consequently, he could not warn his master that to attack you would be to risk transferring power to you and marking you as his equal. Essentially, while Voldemort knows that he can potentially be defeated by Harry, he doesn't actually believe Harry to be a legitimate threat to himself until Harry begins hunting Horcruxes. Yes, he does certainly want to eliminate Harry, but as it has been shown many times throughout the series, while Voldemort is confused and frustrated at his inability to land the killing blow on Harry, he actually spends most of their interactions straight up bullying him.
I can touch you now.
It could even be argued that Voldemort is more frustrated by the prophecy than he is afraid of Harry. That can't, however, be said about Dumbledore. And there are a few reasons for that, which I believe makes this fear Voldemort has of Dumbledore one of the best written facets of the series. So let's get the obvious out of the way. Dumbledore is strong. Even in his old age, the man is lethal. Their battle in the Department of Mysteries tells of this perfectly, as well as the fact that Voldemort constantly goes out of the way to make sure that Dumbledore is not there when he tries to kill Harry. Examples of this could be the scheme to get Albus to go to the Ministry in Book 1, or even the fact that the portkey in Goblet of Fire was designed to take him away from where Dumbledore would be watching. But even so, that isn't the true reason behind the fear. Think about it. Voldemort knows that according to the prophecy, Dumbledore isn't the one who will be the death of him, at least not directly. Sure, he may be able to best Voldemort in combat, but all that'll happen is that Voldemort would go back into that mist form and have to go through the trouble of getting his body back. But we've seen that that's really... it gets a lot easier once you have followers. And while that could be annoying, it wouldn't be enough to kill him. Before we get to really exploring the reasons, I did want to point out a theory I read somewhere on the internet, which, while it is wrong, is still a super cool noticing, and basically it stated that because Voldemort's greatest fear is death, and because Dumbledore at one point held all 3 of the Deathly Hallows, that Dumbledore was the master of the very thing Voldemort feared. And while I think this is super cool, unfortunately the timelines don't add up, particularly around the Elder Wand, as Voldemort didn't know that Dumbledore had the Elder Wand until after Dumbledore's death. Still, I love this fact because Dumbledore being the master of death at one point, and his willingness and ease of accepting his death sentence in Book 6, is the polar opposite of Voldemort as a character. So then, what is the true source of the fear? Well, as any first-year psych student will tell you, to find the root of a phobia, we have to go back to childhood. We got to go back to before Voldemort was Voldemort, and rather the boy living in Wool's orphanage, Tom Riddle. The scenes where Harry and Dumbledore begin exploring Riddle's past are one of my favorite parts of Half-Blood Prince, and is the reason why it's my second favorite book in the series, and subsequently, why its movie counterpart is one of my least favorites. Still, one thing that it got right from the books was Dumbledore's first interaction with Tom. And I thought the best way to do this would be to go through a bullet point list of all of the major events that occurred during that first interaction. So starting from the top, Dumbledore gives Riddle the news he wants to hear, stating that he is in fact unique. And uniqueness, or the idea of being special, is very important to Tom's character. It is even the reason why he changes his name, as he himself states,
Riddle gave an irritable twitch as though trying to displace an irksome fly. You dislike the name Tom? There are a lot of Toms, muttered Riddle.
Dumbledore then shows him a fraction of his strength in causing the wardrobe to light on fire, making Tom Riddle, who'd been using his magic to feel strong and intimidating, feel small and weak by comparison. Dumbledore then, for the first time, gives an order to Tom that he can't refuse or wiggle out of, essentially telling him, I have what you want, and that being an acceptance to Hogwarts, but you can't have it until you do what I say. And in fairness to Dumbledore, what he wants Tom to do is to return the items he stole. Not really that big of an ask, but most disturbingly for Tom, he doesn't understand how Dumbledore knew about his wrongdoings in the first place, and for the first time, understands that he's going to have to comply with someone else's authority. All of that is before Voldemort even arrives at Hogwarts as a student, and upon arriving at Hogwarts, he learns that Dumbledore's reputation is that of the strongest wizard of his age, something that no doubt implanted itself into his psyche from the time he was a boy. To make matters worse, while Voldemort is able as a student to charm other professors like Slughorn and Ministry members, even to the point of getting away with the death of Myrtle for his first Horcrux when he opens the Chamber of Secrets, he is still uncomfortably aware that Dumbledore can see right through him.
Only Dumbledore seemed to think he was innocent.
I bet Dumbledore saw right through you.
He certainly kept an annoyingly close watch on me after that. I knew it wouldn't be safe to open the chamber again.
And despite the fact that Voldemort will grow to become one of the Master Legilimens, somebody who can literally read minds, every interaction between Voldemort and Dumbledore makes Voldemort feel as if he's playing chess with a man who can both read his mind and see the future.
It was foolish of you to come here tonight, Tom. The orders are on their way.
For whatever the reason, no matter how strong Voldemort himself feels he becomes, he cannot seem to stay a step ahead of Dumbledore. Even in Dumbledore's death, Voldemort still finds himself on the back foot as Dumbledore has woven contingencies in the form of Harry, Hermione, Ron, and even amongst Voldemort's own ranks in Snape that will constantly work against him. I think above it all, however, is the fear that comes from Voldemort's inability to understand what Dumbledore tells him over and over again to be the source of both his and Harry's strength. love. I want you to imagine this. You are in a fight with someone you've constantly been fighting for years. And every time, no matter how strong you get, your opponent has this one punch that every time he hits you with it, you fall down. You've thought about it obsessively, and on the surface, it doesn't seem like anything special. And though you try to keep getting stronger, that punch always takes you out. If you were in that situation, wouldn't you also be afraid of fighting that opponent? Voldemort is incapable of understanding love and the protection that love-based magic is capable of casting over people. He cannot accept the idea that fighting to defend what and who you cherish will always make you stronger than someone who fights only for themselves and their own ambition. I think that what Voldemort fears more than anything is the idea that despite talking down upon the power of love that Dumbledore states to be his greatest strength, that Dumbledore is right, and that Voldemort can never access the well of power that Dumbledore and later Harry will have. The idea of an antagonist not making a move against the protagonist because the hero is protected by a mentor the antagonist fears is not something that is original to Harry Potter. I mean, Naruto has one of my favorite examples where Kisame is dissuaded from attacking a young Naruto by Itachi because he is being guarded by Jiraiya. Or a character like Minato having a flee on sight warning issued to him during the war. What I think makes the dynamic of the fear between Voldemort and Dumbledore one of the best written parts of Harry Potter is the power is not the sole contributor to the fear, but rather a fear of the truth, and the fear that Voldemort has of not being the one who sees through the other, but just the opposite when faced with the idea of facing Dumbledore. The world may see Voldemort as the most feared dark wizard, but Dumbledore sees the mortal boy within him. He sees the truth that Voldemort wanted to hide from the world. Dumbledore knows more than anyone that Voldemort is a man, not an immortal. And that is what makes the fear that Voldemort has of Dumbledore perfect and one of the best written parts of the Harry Potter series. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about the reasons I gave for Voldemort's fear of Dumbledore. I know that the power of love was kind of a divisive point in the Harry Potter series, so I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that whole aspect of the story too. Again, thank you all for the support you've given this channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, it would mean a ton if you could. And if you could drop a like while you're down there, that would help out a lot as well. Anyway, not here to hold you any longer. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.